Greetings everyone, welcome to episode 6 of LEGO Rewind. Today we'll jump into the world of stop-motion LEGO movies. Brick films have been a hugely influential part of LEGO's history. From the Magic Portal to the ones we're seeing nowadays, it feels like the recent theatrical films released by LEGO, which aren't stop-motion themselves, but do emulate the jerkiness and flow of it rather well, are the logical result of all that fans have created over the years. And LEGO's done their part to foster the little filmmaker in all of us with the LEGO Studios line starting in 2000. Surprisingly, only one set was released that year, the Steven Spielberg Movie Maker set. This and several other sets featured a director minifig that represented Spielberg himself, or in the case of the Spider-Man sub-theme, Sam Raimi. A parody of the final chase scene in Jurassic Park The Lost World and maybe even Roland Emmerich's Godzilla, this was a big set in its own right, featuring that T-Rex from Dino Island, a baby T-Rex, though these might just be props, a giant foot, some collapsible buildings, some smaller buildings for the background, and sliding plates that simulate an earthquake. I bet a fair amount of the kids who had this set filmed a shot of that giant foot stomping on the road to create that earthquake. Seems like the most obvious thing you could do with it. And this was expensive. $180 for 433 pieces. But make no mistake, it is warranted, considering this includes a giant LEGO camera. Yes, an actual working camera that took both photos and videos, the cables necessary to plug into your computer, and even software for a video editing program. Yeah, look at this thing. I remember using it with other sets. It works much like programs like Sony Vegas do, and Windows Movie Maker used to before it was only good for slideshows. You could cut shots together on the timeline, add sound effects, and you could import pictures and videos taken from other cameras. 2001 saw a lot of additions to the theme, mostly vehicles, destructible environments, and other props like this. There were a ton of polybags that featured legendary minifigures like the Nesquik Rabbit, or smaller pieces of filming equipment, and even some terrain. There were quite a few sub-themes introduced later in that year in 2002, including Jurassic Park 3, Spider-Man, and the spooky subline. Jurassic Park 3 got two sets, one simulating the plane crash with a not very convincing Spinosaurus. And look! There's that Raptor Rumble set, which I assume is recreating the InGen lab. I told you that set would be appearing again. The Raptors and Pterodon included here look even more terrible, but I like that. These aren't real dinosaurs after all in the context of LEGO's universe. These are animatronics that would probably be animated over. I think it's appropriate that they don't look that realistic, as much as the real animatrons may have. Next, there's Spider-Man, based on the 2002 film. This line actually went on to have quite a few good sets based on the first two films, and what is this heresy? But the first few made for the studios line were quite different. The later Spider-Man sets recreated scenes from the movie like they were actually happening. But the first few made it clear that this was the filming of the movie. And with a few extra pieces, the interior of this bank can be used to recreate the Goblins' attack at the balcony. I got these sets and my brother and I were inspired to make some of our own stuff with the software included. These pictures are so old and I've never used them for anything. I guess this is as good a time as any. I think this version of the Green Goblin's glider is one of the last times those chrome spears were ever used. There was also a planned set for the wrestling match with Bonesaw that never got released. Shame. The spooky sub-theme was great fun. It's kind of funny to me how the Mary Jane minifig was reused in this line. So I guess this is representing Kirsten Dunst in a horror flick? Or it could be LEGO's just lazy. This Curse of the Pharaoh set makes it feel like we've gone in a circle, seeing as the adventures make appearances in this line as stand-ins and how that theme started. I like how in sets like this there's always a few conspicuous elements like the support beam and the guy with a mic to break the illusion and remind you that, yes, this is intended to be a studio. Some may feel otherwise, but I think it adds a bit of extra charm to these. There was an online game called The Backlot where you wander around a studio and interact with directors and various characters within the LEGO universe. Even Takua makes an appearance in a restaurant. I distinctly remember a part where Johnny Thunder, or an actor playing as him, couldn't perform a stunt, so you had to disguise yourself and do it. Then the director's like, "I know it was you. Nice work, kid. Maybe you'll have a future as a stuntman." If you're able to track it down, play it while you can before Flash is face on and is gone forever. LEGO Studios was one of the last themes to feature the words, "Just imagine," as a slogan. Funny thing, that ellipse that gets bigger, I always read that in some weird alien pulsing sound like, "Just imagine, whoa, whoa." 2002 was the end for LEGO Studios. It had a nice run, but with a future full of smart devices, with built-in cameras and other video editing software that would come along, LEGO's own equipment quickly became obsolete. They have released some other lines with a more cinematic flavor though. Take the Prince of Persia line for example. These sets are covered with studs and other things for the minifigs to clutch so kids can pretend they're parkouring like in the movie and the games. And even some of the new Ninjago sets have a bit of that. In fact, you could say the spirit of LEGO Studios is alive and well with the LEGO Ninjago movie, with 2 sets released for the line with a place to put your iPhone and elements you could use for practical effects. Of course, it doesn't include a smartphone, but who doesn't have one nowadays? Kids of today pressing their phone buttons and touchscreens. I really hope the LEGO Ninjago movie does well enough to warrant future theatrical films about LEGO's original IPs. The licensed stuff like Spider-Man and Star Wars is nice, but I don't want the future to be dominated by just that. LEGO's parodies of other things that already exist. Good or bad, this film is a trendsetter that will determine the future course of many things, and best case scenario, we'll see a lot of young filmmakers inspired by LEGO's products to pick up a camera and fiddle around with their own sets like we did back in the day. One can hope. Fingers crossed for that brighter future. That's it for today. Next time we take a look at a theme that's been heavily requested since day one. Alpha Team.
It's a dinosaur action flick. Dino Cop, Scene 3. She patrols the city and tracks down bad guys.
It's the world premiere of LEGO Studios. Hook up the digital video camera to your